Concluding thoughts on that?
I had a question actually, and to both of them, leading to your question. If we do not know where are we heading to, what is it that you would expect the people to do as part of the change? I mean, we expect people to be the change, to be the catalyst or evangelist.
Sure.
Doing what? I mean, if we are not sure, what are we trying to achieve here? So even if we are doing a transparent and an open communication, what we're saying is that this is one keyword called change. Just do that, but we don't know what and how. So isn't that,
Dichotomous.
yeah.
Which is why the submission that I was making is it has to be directional. We may not know the steps around it, and like Sakar was saying, we can honestly and openly involve and put our arms around the people and sort of co-opt everybody to articulate the steps, but directionally we must be clear. Because then where's the argument for change if we don't know what we are changing for and what we want to do?
Sure. Great.
So as I said, see, if I inherit a change, right, then somebody above me has decided where we are going, right? In that case, I would more or less know what the end state looks like. But if I have a desire for a change, wherein I am initiating a change, I might not exactly know the end state. But in that case, I can involve the people who will be impacted by the change in working with me in deciding the end state. And
Sure.
I think that's a better situation to be in, because now we are deciding the change that we want to make. So the resistance to the change will be far lesser.
Okay. Great.
Yeah,
Any other? We'll just come to the panelists. I think a lot of the people in the audience really want to ask some questions, right? I can see some smoke coming out of your heads, right? Or is it because of the light? I'm not very sure. But yeah, so let's do this. You know, we have mics around the auditorium. Let's try to check out whether our people have any thoughts, any questions. You all heard about our panelists sharing their experience. What has changed? What are the examples? They gave their own personal anecdotes. What are the success factors also? So on this, any thoughts, any questions?
I have a question that
Please
how
introduce yourself also, and which institute, please?
I'm Deepika Gasgase from InSearch Institute. I have a question that how could you connect change and consistency? Like market demands for the change, but even market demands for the consistency. How could you connect that?
So what you're saying is essentially change and consistency seem to be different things.
Yes.
So how do you balance it and ensure there's a fine line between the two?
Yeah.
Right? Anyone of you want to take this? The person who has the mic has to take it. Okay. Go ahead.
I've got. See,
So any one principle I'd like to ensure is that any easy questions please ask me, any difficult ones please ask the panel. Go ahead.
yeah. So whenever we are changing and to balance it with consistency, the requirement is preserving the core. And second is giving the stability to the change. Then only the consistency would be met. To give an example, if we are changing, okay, as a student, if we change our study plan, our nature doesn't get changed. If we study only for 30 minutes, we will continue to study for 30 minutes only, whether I study in the evening or in the morning. So preserve the core.
Sure. Okay.
So, I wanted to answer it a little differently. See, market demands consistency from a business in service and quality. Okay, and to meet that consistency of service and quality, organizations have to change. So it's not that the market says that don't change and still give me consistency. The market says, I don't care, but give me consistency in service and quality. And to meet that requirement of the market, we change internally because the world around us is changing.
Sure.
So that is like saying to be consistent to market demands, you need to change.
Great.
So I contradicted you, but actually complimented you.
And Confucius has said there is no constant thing as change. So it goes hand in hand. I mean, and like he so succinctly put it, To be able to be consistent, you have to adapt to change. You have to be agile, which you will be hearing about in the afternoon's panel discussion as well.
Thank you, Rajni. Any other questions, please? Yes, the gentleman there.
Good afternoon, panelists.
A bit louder, please.
My name is Alok Dokiwar. I am from
Aruk.
Alok.
Alok.
I am from Indira Institute of Management.
Okay.
So my question is to Anand sir. Anand Sagar sir. So like you said, if a person or the leaders are not clear with their vision, and to be honest to them and say straight away that, look, we are not clear with our vision, don't you think, sir, that our employees or the person who are working beneath us will lose out confidence or trust factor in us?
Okay, I think that was what was also said a bit earlier. So it's a fine line, and but I'll request our panelists to comment on that.
Sure. So, see, there is a need for change that we are clear about. Okay, and that, as we said, when we are working with our people, there are lots of things that you can do with those people. Any change is about human beings, and human beings are made of two things: a head and a heart. Okay, so you have to identify what appeals to whom, and then go to those people with that kind of a message, right? And as you said, people might lose faith in change. Why? Because they are resistant to change, right? So when we embark on a change, we need to know who are the people who can make or break our change, as you said. Now, those are the opinion makers in the company. And then there's something called a stakeholder analysis. Identify them, find out why would they resist a change. There could be many reasons for resisting a change. It could be, this is how I work. It could be a political reason, because I lose power. Or it could be a technical reason, because I don't have resources to make this change. Then work a plan to address that resistance. So, it's not that we decide change. So change is a long-drawn process, but it has to happen in a timely manner. So, I wanted to give you a very close-to-life change story. How many of you have seen the movie Lagan? Everybody?
Nearly everybody has seen. Wow. Do you also get time to see movies? I thought it's all of studies in symbiosis. Anyway. Okay, yeah.
So what Amir Khan did in that movie to convince his brethren to play that cricket match with the Britishers was all change management.
Right.
He found people who would make his team successful. He convinced them to play that match, even though it was risky. And then he gave them systems and structures to be successful. And eventually, they executed the change. Right? So, I just wanted to give you a Lagan story because it's much more closer to our heart, but that is change management. It is a step-by-step process, a systemic process where common sense is made common science.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, the lady there. The next question is from this side, okay? Oh, okay.
Very good afternoon, everyone.
A bit louder, please.
Very good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Aishwarya Gole, and I'm coming from InSearch College in Pune.
Okay.
My question is to all of you. It's what are the attributes you are looking from us when we join the industry to help in the change management process in an organization?
Okay. So what are we
Attributes.
as people in industry
Yes.
looking at you as students here to have in mind when you come,
Yes.
when you join industry,
Qualities, the qualities.
right? The qualities. Are you talking about specific to change management or generally?
In change management,
In
basically.
change management. Great question. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Aishwarya, for the question.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's really a very pertinent question. So thanks once again. See, as I was listening to you, I was thinking about a personal experience which I will share with you now, right? A few years ago, when I first moved into smartphones, I'm from the old generation, right? Smartphones are still not very convenient for me. So a few years ago, I moved into smartphones. You can sit down, Aishwarya. And I was obviously very uncomfortable with the touch and touchpad and whatever when I moved into the iPhone, etc. So I used to ask my son, who was 8 at that time, as to how do I do it, right? So he used to tell me, you have to, keep your hands steady, mom, and what is this, etc., etc. And then one fine day, I realized that, he was talking to his younger brother, who was 4 at that time, oh, mom is not able to handle that smartphone, so don't talk to her about it, kind of a thing. So I felt really very annoyed. Here I was the mom, I'm supposed to be the know-all, and till that point in time, he was dependent on me for everything. And suddenly I was reduced to this ignorant, know-nothing mother, and being discussed. So I told him, I went to him and I told him, Aditya, what is this? So he said, Mom, you don't know. I'm telling you, you don't know. I didn't mean to offend you. I was just telling my brother that you did not know, and therefore, his conversations with you need to be catered to that. So then I told him, Aditya, you have offended me, right? So please understand that you may have been born with this, you have seen smartphones when you are 7 or 8 years old, but I am coming from a generation, this was quite an adult conversation that I had with him. So I am coming from a generation where mobile phones were not in existence when I grew up, right? The concept of connecting with people on mobile is something that we got acquainted with after we completed college. And now it has grown beyond, it has gone into social feeds, it has gone into Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. We are acquainting ourselves with it, right? So when you go, so then we had this adult conversation, then we agreed that, and then he sat down and he taught me, and then we had a very, very congenial atmosphere after that, and then he equipped, so now I feel comfortable going and asking him, he's comfortable coming and explaining it to me, etc., etc. So now the main ask, I'm just translating that to you, right? When you get into your workspace, you will be surrounded by people of all age groups, of all ancestries, of all capabilities. You are going to be managers, and you need to be good managers. So the greatest thing, or the fundamental thing that you need to be aware of is, be aware that not everybody is on the same page, and put your arms around people. Be open to go and teach what you know. Be open to learn what you don't know. So that way, you create a collaborative environment within the organization, so that people start trusting you, you start leaning more on people, and together you lead the change.
Sure. Great. I mean, that's very, very true. And being open when you go out into the workplace. I hope that answers your question, right? Great. From this side, please. Yeah, the gentleman in the back. The gentleman there, while that mic is fixed.
Hello. My name is Avnish Kumar Shukla. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My question is, the very first thing, although change is a very constant thing in life, but don't you think that we are much adaptable to have change without thinking, is it positive way or is it in the negative sense? As some of the times some new technologies come into the market, or either by the government or by private organizations, and some bad effects come into the picture. So should we think about having a change? Should we discuss, and then we should have a change? And the secondary thing, don't you think that thinking out of the box is not always necessary? We should think about the things to have change, then we should apply the things. Thank you.
Okay, I think the question is essentially, should you first discuss about the change and then implement it? And the second thing is, do we always need very creative and inventive answers, out of the box thinking answers to really solve problems? Is that right? Is that a summary of the question? Okay, great.
Yeah, can I take?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's a very important question because when change, I started off saying change before change changes you, where you perhaps don't even realize what will be the impact of that change on you as an organization or even as an individual. Like you said, there are a lot of bad influences of smartphones. It's a good change in terms of technology, but there are a lot of bad influences. Now, many of us as people or as organizations need to change just to stay relevant. Sure. That all of my colleagues are using smartphones, therefore I should use smartphones. All of the organizations are going online, therefore I need to go online. Yeah. So the fact that we're changing is just because I need to stay relevant. But I think it is very important that change has to be in line with the vision and mission of the organization, or to at an individual level as to what you're aspiring to do, what are your likes and interests.
Alignment with the larger picture.
Yes. And like what he talked about, without compromising on certain core values that you maintain as an individual or as an organization. Right? So if there are aspects of smartphones or any change that you're experiencing which do not match with the values of you as an individual or as an organization, I think you should wait for it. But if you think that there is a change which is happening, which is in line with your values, and you need to anticipate that change and move before change changes you, I think you should take the step forward. You understand my point? Does that answer your question to some extent?
Sure. Okay. Great. Yeah.
I would like to add it to.
We'll try to make it brief so that we can go on with some more questions. But go ahead, please.
I would like to add to that point, and as one of our panelists said, many a times we link the change to the market changes. Like earlier feature phones was there, now smartphones are there. But there can be change in communications also. Like we take an example of Vodafone. Earlier there was Pug, now there is Zuzu. Yeah, so they have just changed the style of communication.
Sure. Great. Somebody from the center? Yeah, the lady here in the front. Yeah.
Hi, sir and ma'am. This is Anuradha Acharya from Second Year Systems in Finance, SITM. So I want to ask you that when you're talking about change, change doesn't always have a rosy picture. Apart from that, it brings along with it a lot of layoffs. So how do you all plan to handle these layoffs, and what are the vernaculars of layoff that you think about when you conduct the same?
Okay, great.
Okay.
So
I've been fairly neutral here.
Sometimes very difficult situations in a change management process. How do you handle them? Example, layoffs, right? Is that your question?
Exactly.
I think, Anuradha, that's your name, right? Okay. Anuradha, I think, generally it is associated. I mean, people have generalized change with layoffs. They may not necessarily happen. And it totally depends upon what direction are you heading. Are you an oversized organization? Have you just grown leaps and bounds without really realizing? What is the focus? What do you want to do? Is there a paradigm shift needed within the skill set of the people? That actually derives whether there has to be a layoff or there doesn't have to be a layoff. And it is, we'll have to break this thought process of saying change means layoff. It doesn't necessarily happen. Change can be a system change, an automation change, a change in the product delivery, change in the product itself. And that actually, if you're upskilling yourself, you may not just need a single layoff. So it is about how the organizations are managing that change and how people are involved as a part of that change.
Okay.
Some of my colleagues sitting here have done that. They've done that.
Right,
So
absolutely.
I'm sure they'll have more points in terms of giving up answers on that.
Thanks, Ashwini. I have done that a lot in my life. It's not an easy experience for either party, the person who's communicating and the person who's receiving the communication as well. I think the fundamental thing there in terms of managing it is, again, being honest, treating the individuals with fair and equal opportunity, treating the individuals with human dignity and respect. Just because a role becomes redundant, you don't treat the person as unwanted and sort of let go. So it is a painful exercise, but many a time it becomes necessary. And obviously, when there is a strong business rationale as to why we're doing what we are doing, you can always substantiate it. So strong business rationale is necessary. Secondly, treating the individual with dignity, respect, fairness, and empathy will help manage it in a manner that is seamless. It cannot be painless. It will be painful.
Great. So, very well answered, and I think I also just remember, Dr. Sunil Patel's remarks in the morning, how even a large organization like AT&T Bell Labs, right, refused to change after a point. Probably, it got so big, it got so unwieldy that it said, hey, you know what, we don't really need to change. It's the small outfits out there which really need to change. And then today, where it is. So thanks so much for your question. Any other questions from the center? From this side, please. Just 1 second, please.
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
my name is Ketki. I'm from first year System in Finance, SITM.
Okay.
My question here is, there is another aspect of change, like when we have a change in the top management, someone who has been very pivotal in building up the organization. If the top management changes, what role does the middle managers or the lower managers play to, facilitate the change very smoothly, to make sure that the organization functions the same way as it used to be earlier?
Okay, so your question is, if the top management changes,
Yes.
then what is the role of the middle management in ensuring stability,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Anyone would like to take the question?
Yeah, could I take that? See, normally when there is a change in top management or leadership positions, there's always a succession plan in place, and the successors are groomed even to take on the position. And communication is also made to the people down the line, and they have, they need to be resilient to that, because with every change, there's going to be a change of style, which you need to adapt to. But it's a rare case where, there's a change and it's vacuum out there. There will always be a plan to take on those roles.
Sure, great.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
add to
Sakar.
that. So, see, there could be a top management change for two reasons. Okay, one is that the company was going nowhere, and the leader who has been changed was not being seen as an effective leader, right? In that case, change is in order. Change was required, right? So that would be a planned change. When there's a planned change, as she said, we would have a succession plan in place. A new leader will come in, and the new leader gauges the mood of the organization. The organization wanted change, so now new policies, new business strategies will be implemented. So in that case, change was warranted. There could be a situation where the leader was doing well, but for some reason, the leader decided to leave the company, right? In that case, it is very important to be careful, because the organization was aligned with this leader, right? You might have to put an ad hoc plan in place. You might have to put an interim leader in place. The job for the interim leader is to make sure that the status quo is maintained till a full-time leader comes into the organization. So it depends upon what change are you undergoing.
Okay, great. So just hold your questions, friends. We are going to just going to have another session in terms of Q&A. But I want to ask some very, very important questions to our panel here. We do a lot of change management. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail, right? And our leaders here could also have been through a process where they have failed, right? Or they could have done much better, right? And would you agree, panelists here, right? Tell us something about your experience where probably things could have been done much better. What did we learn from it? Or we absolutely fell flat, we failed. As a HR leader or as a leader in the business, we failed. Tell us something about that, and what is that we can learn from that? We can just quickly go around the table and understand that. And this is basically, please do listen attentively. There's a saying that, wise people learn from the mistakes of others, right? All of you need to be wise people because you can learn from all our experiences. So quick question with regard to failures, what did we learn? Rajni, you want to go?
Let me process this.
Okay, Sakar?
Okay. So a very recent example.
Sure. Can we also be succinct in the interest of time, please?
Absolutely. So, in our engineering organization, in the R&D world, we decided that our job architecture, the job architecture means that you've got various titles, and for each title, there's a job description.